Good evening, and welcome to Doctorpiece Theater. My name is Dr. Dennis Business, and tonight, our friend Dante goes with Virgil deeper into the depths of hell. The poets leave limbo and enter the second circle. Here begins the torments of hell proper. And here, blocking the way, sits Minos, the dread and semi-bestial judge of the damned, who assigns to each soul its eternal torment. He orders the poets back, but Virgil silences him, as he earlier silenced Charon. And the poets move on. They find themselves on a large, dark ledge swept by a great whirlwind, which spins within it the souls of the carnal, those who betrayed reason to their appetites. Their sin was to abandon themselves to the tempest of their passions. So they are forever swept in the tempest of hell, forever denied the light of reason and of God. Virgil identifies many among them. Semiramis is there, and Dido, Cleopatra, Helen, Achilles, Paris and Tristan. Dante sees Paolo and Francesca swept together, and in the name of love, he calls to them to tell their sad story. They pause from their eternal flight to come to him, and Francesca tells their story while Paolo weeps at her side. Dante is so stricken by compassion at their tragic tale that he swoons once again. So we went down to the second ledge alone, a smaller circle of so much greater pain. The voice of the damned rose in a bestial moan. There Minos sits, grinning, grotesque and hale. He examines each lost soul as it arrives and delivers his verdict with his coiling tail. That is to say, when the ill-fated soul appears before him, it confesses all, and that grim sorter of the dark and foul decides which place in hell shall be its end, then wraps his twitching tail about himself, one coil for each degree it must descend. The soul descends, and others take its place. Each crowds in its turn to judgment. Each confesses, each hears its doom, and falls away through space. "O you who come into this camp of woe," cried Minos when he saw me turn away without awaiting his judgment, "watch where you go once you have entered here, and to whom you turn. Do not be misled by that wide and easy passage." And my guide to him, "That is not your concern. It is his fate to enter every door. This has been willed where what is willed must be, and it is not yours to question. Say no more." Now the choir of anguish, like a wound, strikes through the tortured air. Now I have come to help. 3. Now the choir of anguish. 3. Now the choir of anguish, like a wound, strikes through the tortured air. Now I have come to hell's full lamentation, sound beyond sound. I came to a place stripped bare of every light, and roaring on the naked dark like seas racked by a war of winds. Their hellish flight of storm and counter-storm through time foregone sweeps the souls of the damned before its charge. Whirling and battering, it drives them on, and when they pass that ruined gap of hell through which we had come, their shrieks begin anew. There they blame the power of God eternal. And this, I learned, was the never-ending fight of those who sinned in the flesh, the carnal and lusty, who betrayed reason to their appetite. As the wings of wintering starlings bear them on in their great wheeling flights, just so the blast wearies these evil souls. As the wings wintering, 3. As the wings of wintering starlings bear them on in their great wheeling flights, just so the blast wearies these evil souls through time foregone. Here, There, up, down, they whirl, and whirling, they strain with never a hope of hope to comfort them, not of relief. As the wings in three, as the wings of wintering starlings bear them on in their great wheeling flights, just so the blast wearies these evil souls through time foregone. Here, there, up, down, they whirl, and, whirling, strain with never a hope of hope to comfort them, not of release, but even of less pain. As cranes go over sounding their harsh cry, leaving the long streak of their flight in the air, so come these spirits, wailing as they fly. And watching their shadows lashed by wind, I cried, Master, what souls are these the very air lashes with its black whips from side to side? The first of these, whose history you would know, he answered me, was empress of many tongues. Mad sensuality corrupted her so that to hide the guilt of her debauchery, she licensed all depravity alike, and lust and law were one in her decree. She is Semiramis, of whom the tale is told how she married Ninus and She is Semiramis in three. She is Semiramis, of whom the tale is told how she married Ninus and succeeded him to the throne of that wide land the Sultans hold. The other is Dido, faithless to the ashes of Sichaeus. She killed herself for love. The next whom the eternal tempest lashes is sense-drugged Cleopatra. See Helen there, from whom such ill arose, and great Achilles, who fought at last with love in the house of prayer, and Paris, and Tristan. As they whirled above, he pointed out more than 1,000 shades of those torn from the mortal life by love. I stood there while my teacher, one by one, named the great knights and ladies of dim time, and I was swept by pity and confusion. At last I spoke. Poet, I should be glad to speak a word, but those two swept together so lightly on the wind, and still so sad. And he to me, watch them. When they next pass, call to them in the name of love that drives and damns them here. In that name they will pause. Thus, as soon as the wind in its wild course brought them around, I called, O wearied souls, if none forbid it, pause and speak to us. As mating doves that love calls to their nest glide through the air with motionless raised wings, borne by the sweet desire that fills each breast, just so those spirits returned on the torn sky from the Mating doves 3. As mating doves that love calls to the nest glide through the air with motionless raised wings, borne by the sweet desire that fills each breast, just so those spirits turned on the torn sky from the band where Dido whirls across the air. Such was the power of pity in my cry. As mating doves that love calls to their nest glide through the air with motionless raised wings, borne by the sweet desire that fills each breast, just so those spirits turned on the torn sky from the band where Dido whirls across the air. Such was the power of pity in my cry. O living creature, gracious, kind, and good, going through this pilgrimage through the sick night, visiting us who stained the earth with blood, we're the King of Time, our friend. We would pray his peace on you who have pitied us. As long as the wind will let us pause, ask of us what you please. The town where I was born lies by the shore where the Po descends into its ocean rest, with its attending streams in one long murmur. Love, which in gentlest hearts will soonest bloom, seized my lover with passion for that sweet body from which I was torn, unshriven to my doom. Love, which permits no loved one not to love, took me so strongly with delight in him that we are one in hell, as we were above. Love led us to one death. In the depths of hell, Cana, waits for him who took our lives. That was the piteous tale they stopped to tell. And when I had heard those world-offended lovers, I bowed my head. And at last the poet spoke. What painful thoughts are these your lowered brow covers? When at length I answered, I began, Alas! What sweetest thoughts, what green and young desire led these two lovers to this sorry pass? Then, turning to those spirits once again, I said, Francesca, what you suffer here melts me to tears of pity and of pain. But tell me, in the time of your sweet sighs, by what appearances found love the way to lure you to his perilous paradise? And she, the double grief of a lost bliss is to recall its happy hour in pain. Your guide and teacher knows the truth of this. But if there is indeed a soul in hell to ask the beginning of our love out of his pity, I will weep and tell. On a day for dalliance, we read the rhyme of Lancelot, how love had mastered him. We were alone with innocence and dim time. Pause after pause, that high old story drew our eyes together, while we blushed and paled. But it was one soft passage overthrew our caution and our hearts. For when we read of how her fond smile was kissed by such a lover, he who is one with me alive and dead, breathed on my lips the tremor of his kiss. That book, and he who wrote it, was a pander. That day we read no further. As she said this, the other spirit who stood by her wept so piteously, I felt my senses reel and faint away with anguish. I was swept by such a swoon as death is, and I fell, as a corpse might fall, to the dead floor of hell. Dante recovers from his swoon and finds himself in the third circle. A great storm of putrefaction falls incessantly, a mixture of stinking snow and freezing rain which forms into a vile slush underfoot. Everything about this circle suggests a gigantic garbage dump. The souls of the damned lie in the icy paste, swollen and obscene, and Cerberus, the ravenous three-headed dog of hell, stands guard over them, ripping and tearing at them with his claws and teeth. These are the gluttons. In life, they made no higher use of the gifts of God than to wallow in food and drink, producers of nothing but garbage and offal. Here they lie through all eternity, themselves like garbage, half buried in fetid slush, while Cerberus slavers over them as they in life slavered over their food. As the poets pass, one of the speakers sits up and addresses Dante. He is Siaco, the hog, a citizen of Dante's own Florence. He recognizes Dante and asks eagerly for news of what is happening there. With the foreknowledge of the damned, Siaco then utters the first of the political prophecies that are to become a reoccurring theme of the Inferno. The poets then move on towards the next circle, at the edge of which they encounter the monster Plutus. My senses had reeled me out of pity for the sorrow of those kinsmen and lost lovers. Now they return, and walking gradually, I see new torments and new souls in pain about me everywhere. Wherever I turn, away from grief, I turn to grief again. I am in the third circle of the torments. Here, to all time, with neither pause nor change, the frozen rain of hell descends in torrents. Huge hailstones, dirty water and black snow pour from the dismal air to putrefy the putrid slush that waits for them below. Here, monstrous Cerberus, the ravaging beast, howls through his triple throats like a mad dog over the spirits sunk in that foul paste. His eyes are red, his beard is greased with phlegm, his belly is swollen, and his hands are claws to rip the wretches and flay and mangle them. And they, too, howl like dogs in the freezing storm, turning and turning from it as they thought one naked side could keep the other warm. When Cerberus discovered us in that swill, his dragon jaws yawed wide, his lips drew back in a grin of fangs. No limb of him was still. My guide bent down and seized in either fist a clod of the stinking dirt that festered there and flung them down the gullet of the beast. As a hungry cur will set the echoes raving and then fall still when he has thrown a bone, all of his clamor being in the craving, so the three ugly heads of Cerberus, whose yowling at those wretches deafened them, choked on their putrid sops and stopped their fuss. We made our way across the sodden mess of souls the rain beat down, and when our steps fell on a body, they sank through emptiness. All those illusions of being seemed to lie drowned in the slush, until one wraith among them sat up abruptly and called as I passed by. "O you who are led this journey through the shade of hell's abyss, do you recall this face? You had been made before I was unmade. And I? Perhaps the pain you suffer here distorts your image from my recollection. I do not know you as you now appear." And he to me, "Your own city, so rife with hatred that the bitter cup flows over, was mine too in that other clearer life. Your citizens nicknamed me Siaco, the hog. Gluttony was my offense, and for it, I lie here rotting like a swollen log. Nor am I lost in this all alone. All these you see about you in this painful death have wallowed in the same indecencies." I answered him, "Siaco, your agony weighs on my heart and calls my soul to tears, but tell me if you can, what is to be for the citizens of that divided state, and whether there are honest men among them, and for what reasons we are torn by hate." And he then, "After many words given and taken, it shall come to blood. White shall rise over black and rout the dark lord's force, battered and shaken. Then it shall come to pass within 3 suns that the fallen shall arise, and by the power of one now gripped by many hesitations. Black shall ride on white for many years, loading it down with burdens and oppressions, and humbling of proud names and helpless tears. 2 are honest, but none will heed them. There, pride, avarice, and envy are the tongues men know and heed, a babble of despair." Here he broke off his mournful prophecy, and I to him, "Still, let me urge you on to speak a little further and instruct me. Men of good blood, and others who set their hearts on doing good, where are they now whose high deeds might begem the crown of kings? I long to know their fate. Does heaven soothe them, or does hell envenom them?" And he, "They lie below in a blacker lair. A heavier guilt draws them to greater pain. If you descend so far, you may see them there. But when you move again among the living, oh, speak my name to the memory of men." Having answered all, I say no more. And giving his head a shake, he looked up at my face cross-eyed, then bowed his head and fell away among the other blind souls of that place. And my guide to me, "He will not wake again until the angel trumpet sounds the day on which the host shall come to judge all men. Then shall each soul before the seat of mercy return to its sad grave and flesh and form, to hear the edict of eternity." So we picked our slow way among the shades and the filthy rain, speaking of life to come. Master, I said, when the great clarion fades into the voice of thundering omniscience, what of these agonies? Will they be the same or more or less after the final sentence? And he to me, look to your science again, where it is written. The more of a thing is perfect, the more it feels of pleasure and pain. As for these souls, though they can never soar to true perfection, still, in the new time they will be nearer to it than they were before. And so, we walked the rim of the great ledge, speaking of pain and joy, and of much more that I will not repeat, and reached the edge where the descent begins. There, suddenly, we came on Plutus, the great enemy. That was Canto 5 and 6 of the Inferno by Dante Alighieri. And we've met a couple of new characters. We've met Minos. He sentences people. So what happens is, you go through the places Dante and Virgil went, you get to the beginning, you get to the middle, you get to the gate, and then you get in. The first person you see is Minos. You go up, you confess everything you've ever done, and then he judges you by wrapping his tail around his body. And the more times he wraps it around his body, that's the deeper you go into hell. It's very efficient, if you ask me. And then we met Cerberus, the three-headed hound of hell. I only had to restart the video 4 times because I couldn't say that. Three-headed hound of hell. Yeah, now it's easy. But the thing about Cerberus is a three-headed dog. And they say slathers. They say the word slathered. It was weird to me, but now it doesn't seem so weird. But slobbers is what I think when somebody says slavers, I always think slobbers. So, but slathers has a different meaning to it. I don't fucking even care at this fucking point. I'm going to tell you that right now with all the goddamn Italian words I have to look up. Slobbers. You know what I'm getting at. So the dog slobbers over the souls that he's always tearing apart as they did over their food in life. So all they did was be gluttonous. And so now Cerberus is gluttonous over them. So everything always seems equal. And every time I start thinking about this stuff, my brain wants to explode. Ugh. What have we done, friends? What have we done? Well, we will find out next time, because this has been Doctorpiece Theater. My name is Dr. Dennis Business. And as always, my friends,